Hello there and welcome back. Today we talk about the Xaoc device Koszalin with some help from the Zadar and the Moog Mavis. The Koszalin is a frequency shifter, stereo, not to be confounded with a pitch shifter. What does it do? So let me grab the manual. And frequency shifting is a process that affects all spectral components of a signal by changing their frequency by an equal number of hertz. That means that it pushes the frequency in a different way than a pitch shifting device, and you enter some sort of a tonal kind of sound. So you have a big knob here, and you can shift upwards or downwards by a certain amount of hertz, and you have a multiplier here by 1, 10, or 100. And it's a stereo or can be fed by mono, and then it come out in two pairs of stereo output, one that will output the up shifted out and one that the down shifted out. So at any given moment you can use these four output for anything. You can mix and match them and get into different sonic territories. The Koszalin also add two more control. One is the regen, so basically is a feedback circuit, and a density. With this use of all of them, you can really get wild, and I am using it a lot to create drone and some sort of pads once they are processed with other pedals or effects that can be very useful for my live setup. To be honest, this is a kind of effect that I never used before. You can get some like phasing and kind of effect, like the phaser, so flanging. I might be wrong with that, but that's how it sounds. So if you use it, if you shift by a little, we will hear that it can be similar to those kind of effect, but when you go heavy, it's definitely something wild. With the use of the Zadar that create all the weirdest envelope, you can animate and create something that is very cinematic. It can be used as an effect. So to me is really interesting. And beside that, every time that I use something that it's outside my comfort zone, you know, I end up learning something. Xaoc device sent me this unit to try for full disclosure, so thank you. All right, let's just feed one signal so we can start understanding what this guy does. So we have the Mavis outputting a, in this case, square wave. At this point, the shifting is set to 0. We have the range on 1, and the regeneration is down. We can put this all down. It comes into the left. If you plug any signal on the left signal, it will be output as a stereo. If you put on the right, it only go on the right. In this case, I kind of flip this. Look at that. Yeah, now it works. So let's hear what happened. Let's start moving the knob and see how it sounds. So this is some kind of effect that once you hear it, you realize, okay, I heard this before. And it's easy to set the amount of hertz because the scale here I think is logarithmic, so at the beginning you have a bigger space to set the amount of hertz you are moving up and down, and then it becomes more short. So this is the range by 1. By 10 it will sound like this. and this is by 100. So while of course there's some pitch shifting also happening, you can hear how this is not following like a scale or a pitch like a pitch shifter would do. So here you got very weird sounding. Once you start playing with the region, it's where the magic of these things happen. For example, now this sounds like a phaser. But the moment you go like on a different range, you definitely lose that kind of vibe and you are in a tonal territory. And the regeneration button can be down, up, or a combination of them. It's interesting to start mismatching this output and hear how the sound will change. For the time being, we will use the upshifted out. So this could be the basic of it. It's interesting when you start to use modulation. So let's use, for example, the Zadar and listen what happens if we start. Let's find something like this. I put that in cycle. The Zadar is an envelope generator, so you have a lot of bank of envelopes that you can decide, and each one has a very interesting and different thing. You can decide how long that the entire envelope will be, and there's a way that you can put it on infinite loop, so it can be trigger, or in this case it's just looping. So let's bring the out and let's put it, for example, in one of these two. These two input are the exponential and linear modulation for the shift. It's got a shape that more easy to understand. Let's use out B for something else, and we can use for the regeneration, for example. As you can hear, we are already getting into very weird places. Let's try in the density. In this case, I stopped the sequence and now just play the note. For the linear modulation, you have also an attenuator here, so you can decide how much of the signal will work. working. So I found myself to use the Koszalin in this way, like feeding audio and then start see what's happening. Do I know exactly what's happening? Honestly, no. But I love this kind of sound. And when you find the right synergy between few modules, you can get this sound like this. This would be just the clean from the Moog. And then I like to mix the things together. Another fun way to use the Koszalin is to feed back the VCO into it. So right now the Koszalin is getting both the VCA out from the Moog plus the VCO. And here I'm not using any other effects, but could be interesting to add a reverb or a delay to that and see what's happened. Why don't we try it? So now I'm putting the guy into the mimeophone. Let's see how it sounds. Interesting, right? So right now, this is the things that I would record to have a sample with later use, for example, with the octa track or other sampler that I have. Right now I'm using both the mimeophone and the data bender. So from here, this is the sound with Koszalin. We are getting into this place. Now I'm modulating the shift with this envelope. Let's find something more choppy. I'm just adding some frequency to create a bigger sound. Now I'm using just the VCO. Maybe I can modulate with try to use the Mavis keyboard CV to modulate that. Pretty interesting. So like all of these special models that do one things is pretty, I wouldn't call it weird, but you know, frequency shifting is not weird, it's something that a lot of people use except for me. It gives you, it's interesting, and I find myself playing for like a lot and just experimenting. So I love this idea of getting to sculpt the sound, and I usually start recording and then later on chop what I like more. It's one kind of module that maybe I wouldn't have thought that I could find interesting, honestly, because I never had the chance to try anything like that. But definitely I have nothing else in my arsenal that can make this kind of sound. And yeah, why not? Why not? Let me try something else. This is pretty nasty kind of bass. Alright, let me go to conclusion, otherwise I will stay here play for other 2 hours. Do I recommend Koszalin? I guess if you are one of those persons that really like to sculpt your sound, learn what's happening with your frequency, and more on the experimental side, yes, I like the all the ideas behind Xaoc device instrument. I own a lot of them. I have also their Odessa, it's actually here, that I'm placing back soon in my case. I have the Praga, not Prada. I have, what else? The Batumi. I think they are all very interesting, and Zadar has always been in my case since a long time because it creates envelope. I don't like screens, but this is the only one that I can deal with the screens because it's super easy to use and super effective. And Koszalin, yeah, fall on these sort of more experimental modules that can be very interesting if you like. And I'd recommend try it. I will definitely use it more for my recording. Well, I hope this was interesting, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.